sale on all his programs now, because I've been hearing he hasn't been able to sell because of all this heat online like he used to.
Okay, he didn't have money for rent. He did not pay for bills. He lived with her, and he lived with her two other friends that lived there before him, and then he had to move in with his girl because he didn't have money.
So it looks like Wes Watson, the most hated man on the internet, the man that loves to get pegged, and the biggest piece of shit. He's crying harder than last time, again, because people are making videos about him, but it's even worse because some of the biggest creators in the world are joining in and roasting the shit out of this asshole. And all this heat is getting harder, starting to bring his scammy business down.
Since when did these video game playing?
Wes Watson has become a full-blown special grade lolcow over the last few months.
Comic book collecting, action figure shelf having, long-haired.
And I have been tuned into the soap opera. I check in on the lore with Wes Watson every couple weeks.
45-year-old virgins start to speak down on studs.
So I watch his newest rants, and I also watch content creators that cover him like Too Lazy to Try or John Bravo.
Do you coach under an LLC? Whoa! There's no way before this suit. Would you fight to have your money be exchanged for time still? That's how fucking dumb you're stupid.
What you want to do is see.
Like, hey, John, hey, how's... What the fuck? We live in Backwardsville.
Sucking, pegging, asshole having, big boy loving, sharmuta paying, piece of shit asshole. In fact, he loves being a sharmuta so much, he was the biggest sharmuta in all of prison. He comes out, and now he's in a prison gang with Kali Muscle and Big Boy, right? So I decided I want to do him a good deed. And I made these t-shirts called Sharmuta Cartel, and they're for sale right now. Link is in the comments, and supplies are limited. So I think it's a good thing we show them all how much we support their cartel. But this is the thing. Like I said, he loves to bully people, right? But he's going after people that are way more successful than him.
Most relevant question on earth. Find me one of these gamers, just find me one, where their gaming avatar looks anything like them. I bet their gaming avatar looks more like a superhero or is jacked. I'd imagine. I'll put my money on it. Find me one of these gamers whose avatar actually resembles them.
Andrew Wilson is a real millionaire. And Moist Critical, he gets over 150 million views a month on YouTube. Do you know how much money that is? He can afford to buy a McLaren every month if he wanted to, but he probably doesn't. You know why? Because he doesn't need to buy shit and show it off to people to make him feel better about himself. And this is you enjoy it. But there's a difference between buying things because you love them or buying things because you want to show them off to people. And the reason why people do that is because they're missing something inside themselves, and they do this to make themselves feel better. You can be rich and be, or you can be rich and be an ass. This guy is the reason why people love. I'm going to tell you a quick story here. When I lived in Scottsdale, right, there's these guys making a good salary for
much money that they are not even trip is, but I mean, my most extravagant purchase is all my bitches with their fake tits and asses that cost me so much money, and they're just horrible people that just have no soul, and they act like they're clean, they're good as online, but behind closed doors, they're the worst person, but they know I don't rat. So they go online ratting about me all day, saying about me, but in all reality, if we knew who they really were, everyone would be like, God, Wes, you're a saint. You know them that good and did that much for them, and that's who they really were? Holy, well, that's a different interview. No.
Well, in 2024, a situation happen at Elevation Fitness?
Oh yeah, we can't go. This is after the trial.
Okay.
Which is like next week.
It's an open case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my lawyer would, he probably, anything I said about that, just get rid of. He will just sock it out of me. I'll be like, I told him he could punch me in the face if I say anything about it. And he would too, he's a badass.
Fair enough. So we're not going to go into the details of it. How much time are you facing?
25 years.
25 years. What exactly are you being charged with?
I don't know, I can't really talk about any of it.
Okay.
Can't even talk about the time or any of it.
Got it.
Because it's all like, anything get to sway it, he'll be so mad and he'll blame me. He'll be like, you swayed it with this? Like, yeah, I just can't say anything. Well, I wish I could because I got a lot to say.
No, I got you. I mean, because you're 41 years old right now.
Yeah.
You did 9 years.
Yep.
How do you feel about potentially facing 25 years?
I don't give a fuck, man. I don't care.
I'm sure you give somewhat of a no given.
I'm a legend. I'm a motherfucking legend. Like, literally, we're going to have to witness who the fuck I am. Everyone's going to have to remember what the fuck I did even more if I'm gone. You know, it's like, dude, nobody did this. Like, dude, it's a movie to me. I don't give a fuck. What am I missing out here? I'll make some money. Like, I'll go hang out. Like, do another interview. I don't give a fuck about anything. Like, it was cool. The only thing that was cool was my little baby girl with my ex. And that is, I already lost that. So what do I got to win? What do I got to do?
Well, I mean, you still have with the little girl.
No.
What happened?
The chick broke up with me and took the baby.
Yeah, but that's still your daughter.
Like, I don't think I'm ready to have a kid with this chick. You know?
Okay.
I've said before that I can't. Well, that's not necessarily true. I think it's like,
yeah.
I don't physically like want to commit to that.
You could always get a vasectomy.
And I would want kids, but I want it to happen like accident. I don't know. I don't want to plan it.
Here's what you do. This is what I do. So now, at this point in my life,
I'm just so unpredictable. Like, I don't want to put kids through that. Now, but when I was committed to my ex chick, like, I was fully ready. I would have a kid with her, but it's just anyone else. I just like.
The thing is, though, is that once you have a vasectomy, you can completely control who you have children with. You could never pull out. You'll never get anyone pregnant. But when it's time to have a kid, she could get her eggs extracted, and then you could do in vitro. And not only can you have a kid, but you could also decide what gender, if you want to get twins or whatever else. So it's fully, for the first time, really in human society, the man decides.
I can tell you some, bro. Like, the real about my stepdaughter and my ex and everything, I'll tell you, and we could maybe do something else about it, but it is the biggest thing in the world, dude. Bigger than anything.
Okay.
It's crazy. It involves two of the highest people in hip hop and everything.
Okay.
The king and queen. You know?
Jay-Z and Beyonce?
I don't know about that.
Okay. Well, before we get off the topic, have you been offered a plea deal in your case?
Oh, not really.
No. Okay.
It was 5 years.
And people are holding on to life so bad because they haven't done shit yet. Like, I've already been so accomplished that I'm like, I don't give a
Wes Watson made $10 million telling people that prison made him unbreakable until he beat a man in his own gym on camera and everything he built started to collapse. Now he's facing 2 felony battery charges, a civil lawsuit with uncapped punitive damages, and a trial that could send him back to prison for 25 years. That is the tragic fate of Wes Watson. The rise of Watson. Wes Watson went to prison in 2010. He was sentenced for a 2009 assault and robbery tied to a $150,000 marijuana debt. He served approximately 9 years in California's high-security facilities. During that time, he did not disappear. He did the opposite. Using a contraband smartphone, he posted workout photos from inside the prison walls, images that would eventually form the foundation of everything he built after release. When Watson got out in 2018, he had a brand ready. His YouTube channel, GP Penitentiary Life, leaned into his prison experience with an intensity that the platform had not really seen before. The content was raw, loud, filled with expletives and stories about yard politics and lessons about discipline that he said came from surviving nearly a decade behind bars. He would sit in front of a camera, veins visible, jaw clenched, and deliver monologues about the rules of incarceration, the hierarchies, the violence, the code that governed every interaction. He talked about shot callers, about the racial politics of the yard, about the rituals that determined whether you survived or became a target, and people watched. They watched in large numbers. By 2025, the channel had accumulated over 75 million views and nearly 600,000 subscribers. Watson's appeal was easy to grasp. He offered something most motivational motivational speakers couldn't. Credibility forged in prison. His stories felt precise and lived in, from washing clothes in showers to hiding legal papers during transfers to the rigid routines of daily life. These weren't secondhand accounts. They came from nearly a decade behind bars. He turned that reputation into a business empire. Watson launched Watson Fit, charging over $1,000 a month for coaching built on the promise that his prison-honed discipline was a system anyone could learn. He published a book, sold merchandise, co-owned Elev H and Fitness in Miami's Wynwood district, and reportedly built a net worth near $10 million by 2026, an extraordinary rise from leaving prison with nothing, and one he framed as proof of grit, transformation, and refusing mediocrity. But the same content that made Watson famous kept inviting trouble. He built his brand on confrontation, challenging critics online, telling detractors to pull up, daring people to face him in person. On camera, he projected total dominance, a survivor who feared nothing. It was partly performance, but one that blurred the line between the stage and the street. When you publicly invite conflict and base your persona on being the toughest in every room, someone eventually accepts the challenge. And when that happens, the creator must choose between the character and the person beneath it. Watson, it seemed, couldn't tell the difference, and his past was never fully behind him. In 2016, while living in Tampa, Watson was involved in a domestic violence incident that resulted in misdemeanor pleas, probation, and a settled civil suit. It was a warning sign, a glimpse of the volatility that prison had not eliminated, but perhaps only redirected. The incident did not derail his career. It barely dented his momentum. Most of his audience either did not know about it or did not care, but it established a pattern that would become impossible to ignore once the cameras captured what happened at Elevation Fitness. Violence was not something Watson had left behind in prison. It was something he carried with him, dormant most of the time, but always accessible. By 2020, other cracks appeared in the facade.
Here's how to disappear from the internet overnight. I dropped my email into Cloaked, and it scanned more than
him. Dormant most of the time, but always accessible. By 2020, other cracks appeared in the facade. Followers began accusing Watson of running overpriced programs that delivered generic advice, workout templates, and motivational platitudes that bore little resemblance to the transformative experience he marketed. The word scam started showing up in comment sections and Reddit threads. Former clients described paying premium rates for cookie-cutter programs that could have been assembled from free YouTube content. His hyper-masculine persona, once magnetic, was drawing scrutiny for inconsistencies in his prison stories and exaggerated claims about his wealth and lifestyle. Some ex-prison YouTubers began publicly questioning whether Watson's role inside had been as significant as he claimed. Still, Watson pushed forward. In late 2024, he was still issuing the same challenges online, still telling people to pull up, still operating under the assumption that his reputation could absorb any provocation he threw at the world.
So there's nothing in you that makes you want to watch all of your peers on YouTube and stuff?
Watson had been asked about the ecosystem of ex-prison YouTubers, people who made content about their time behind bars, just like him. His answer was revealing.
So like, know what's out there?
I don't, dude. If something lands in front of my face, I watch it.
He said he didn't seek out other creators. He didn't want their ideas contaminating his output. He wanted everything to feel like it came from him and only him.
Like, I wouldn't want to watch something like you're putting out, because then I developed that. Like, then my content that I'm doing that day.
That insistence on originality and self-sufficiency was central to the Watson brand. But originality for Watson also meant never yielding, never softening, never letting anyone question him without facing a response. That mindset attracted followers and money. It also created the conditions for what happened next, because on December 29th, 2024, someone took him up on the invitation. The December 29th invitation. Hakeem Ibrahim is described as 6 feet 7 inches tall and approximately 230 pounds, with an athletic build. Some sources describe him as having special needs. He traveled from New Jersey to Miami after responding to Watson's repeated online provocations, the same pull-up challenges that Watson had been issuing. For months on Instagram and YouTube, the journey itself tells a story about the power of online provocation. Ibrahim did not stumble into Elevate High End Fitness by accident. He saw Watson's content, he saw the challenges, he interpreted them, correctly or not, as genuine invitations to confront Watson in person, and he traveled across multiple states to do exactly that. Ibrahim purchased a day pass at Elev 8 Tie-In Fitness, walked into the gym, and set up a camera. Whatever his intentions, he arrived openly. He did not sneak in. He did not bring a weapon. He bought a pass at the front desk like any other customer. What happened next was caught on surveillance, and the footage has defined Watson's case ever since. It shows Ibrahim pushing first, a moment Watson cites as provocation. But what followed is why he now faces decades in prison, the leap from a shove to a crime. Watson and 3 associates allegedly responded with overwhelming force. The civil complaint says they threw more than 50 punches, kicked Ibrahim in the head multiple times, and struck him with a weight belt and dumbbell while using racial slurs. The attack continued even after Ibrahim fell, Dazed and defenseless, it was 4 against 1, with weapons over a single push. Ibrahim suffered a fractured orbital bone, a concussion, and severe bruising, injuries documented in medical records and visible in video that soon spread online. The orbital fracture alone required serious evaluation and risked lasting vision damage, making self-defense claims difficult to sustain. The internet did not need long to form its judgment. The footage went viral almost immediately, spreading across YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok within days. Commentary channels dissected it frame by frame, counting punches, identifying the moments when Watson and his associates switched from fists to weapons, and noting the extended period during which Ibrahim was clearly incapacitated, but the beating continued. MMA communities weighed in with particular vehemence, pointing out the cowardice of a 4-on-1 attack by trained men against a single individual. Legal analysts broke down the footage against Florida's self-defense statutes, and the consensus among most observers was damning. A prolonged multi-person assault using improvised weapons against a man who had thrown one push did not look like self-defense. It looked like a beating carried out by a group that was ready for it and possibly waiting for it. And the evidence suggested exactly that. New video footage emerged indicating that the altercation may have been premeditated, that Watson and his associates had been aware of Ibrahim's planned arrival, having monitored his online communications, and were positioned accordingly when he walked through the door. If this interpretation holds, it demolishes the narrative of spontaneous self-defense entirely. You cannot claim you were caught off guard by a threat you were watching approach. Watson's own response to the incident leaned heavily on the language of the prison yard. He claimed Ibrahim posed a lethal threat. He cited daily death threats he receives via Instagram as justification for the level of force deployed. In later interviews, he framed the encounter in terms that would be familiar to anyone who had spent time inside: the language of respect, dominance, and the consequences of disrespect.
I never heard somebody say they were shocked.
100%. Someone has every block, and then someone has every yard.
Watson was describing the hierarchical structure of prison politics, how every block has someone running it. The system does not recognize yard politics as a justification for beating a man with a dumbbell while he lies on the ground.
That's how you roll up and you say, like, I ain't one of these fools who waits for my paperwork. I'm with it, you know? What's up?
In prison, rolling with your paperwork meant you were prepared. It meant you came ready to prove who you were and what you were about. Watson carried that energy into every encounter, online and off. The problem was that proving yourself in the civilian world comes with civilian consequences, and those consequences were about to land on him with a weight that no amount of prison toughness could absorb. Watson was arrested on February 6, 2025. Initial charges included aggravated battery and assault. Some of those charges were later reduced, but felony battery charges remained. He posted $5,000 bond and was released with a stay-away order from the victim. The relatively low bond amount, $5,000 for felony batteries, surprised some commentators, though it reflected the court's assessment of
I'm so excited! But what's really amazing? How intuitive learning this way feels. I have an AI tutor that actually knows where I'm at. If I'm confident on a topic, it moves me forward. If I'm struggling, it adjusts the difficulty. There are practice sessions after every lesson. I'm not just memorizing, I'm actually building skills. And I can't believe I got this without paying anything. Tap below to apply for a scholarship too.
In prison, being arrested was not an unfamiliar experience, but the context had changed entirely. Watson was no longer a low-level player caught in a drug debt. He was a public figure with a verified social media presence, a documented business empire, and an assault that had been filmed from multiple angles, shared millions of times, and analyzed by legal professionals, combat sports experts, and internet commentators alike. The spotlight he had spent years cultivating was now illuminating the worst moment of his post-prison life. Every content creator who had ever covered Watson's rise now had footage of his most damaging decision. Every competitor who had ever questioned his credibility now had evidence to point to. And every potential juror in Miami-Dade County could, with a simple search, watch the entire incident unfold. The arrest also triggered a parallel legal action that would prove equally dangerous, because alongside the criminal charges, Hakeem Ibrahim filed a civil lawsuit, and that lawsuit, over the following months, would evolve into a financial threat potentially more devastating than the prison sentence itself, and the legal trouble was only beginning. The legal storm. The criminal case against Wes Watson advanced steadily after his February 2025 arrest, with prosecutors pursuing felony battery charges. He was offered plea deals, including a proposed 5-year sentence, but rejected them, applying the same toughness that defined his public image. In court, though, refusing 5 years when facing decades is not bravado. It's a high-risk gamble driven by evidence, not reputation. By November 2025, Watson told Vlad TV he now faced up to 25 years in prison. Still, defiant, he framed the situation as another test of willpower. The case had narrowed to 2 felony counts, with trial tentatively set for March 2026. Watson maintained he acted under Florida's Stand Your Ground law, arguing that Ibrahim's shove constituted battery and that he feared for his safety, citing frequent online threats. But the criminal case is only half of Watson's legal problem. The civil lawsuit filed by Hakeem Ibrahim may ultimately prove even more devastating to his finances and his future. The 57-page civil complaint lays out the assault in exhaustive detail, the number of punches thrown, the head kicks, the use of improvised weapons, the racial slurs, and the continuation of violence against a defenseless man. It seeks damages for assault, battery, and emotional distress, categories designed to capture not only the physical harm Ibrahim suffered, but the psychological and financial fallout that followed. The argument was that Ibrahim had responded to online challenges and willingly entered the gym, thereby consenting to whatever happened inside it. It was an argument that attempted to apply the logic of a mutual combat agreement to a situation where one party was beaten unconscious by 4 people using weapons. The legal and public reception was predictable. The argument did not hold, and what came next made everything significantly worse. Watson's deposition, which took place in January 2026, was a disaster for his legal position, the kind of performance that makes defense attorneys consider career changes. Reports from those familiar with the proceedings describe Watson responding sarcastically to questions, denying evidence that was plainly visible on video, such as the force of kicks delivered to Ibrahim's head. He insulted the plaintiff's attorney, calling him lame. He reportedly became visibly agitated, escalating from dismissive to hostile over the course of the session. And most damaging of all, Watson reportedly made hypothetical threats involving the lawyer's family, the kind of statement that, in a legal proceeding, does not register as tough talk, but as direct evidence of character, disposition toward violence, and contempt for the judicial process. For a man already facing felony battery charges stemming from an incident where he allegedly used excessive force, threatening behavior during a sworn legal proceeding is not merely unwise, it is self-destructive on a level that transcends legal strategy. The behavior triggered a pivotal ruling. On January 27, 2026, the judge granted the plaintiff's motion for punitive damages. This is not a minor procedural development. It is, in many ways, the most consequential ruling of the entire civil case so far. Punitive damages exist to punish conduct that goes beyond ordinary negligence, conduct characterized by malice, willful disregard, or intent to harm. Watson's legal team filed an opposition memorandum on January 31st, emphasizing the self-defense narrative, but the ruling stood. The civil trial is scheduled for February 26, 2026. The plaintiff's exhibit list reportedly includes medical records documenting Ibrahim's injuries, incident videos from multiple angles, Watson's social media posts both before and after the altercation, carefully curated to establish that the confrontation was foreseeable and that Watson exhibited no remorse afterward, and demonstrative aids such as anatomical models showing the location and severity of Ibrahim's fractures. Witnesses include treating physicians, Ibrahim's family members, and record custodians who can authenticate the evidence chain. Legal analysts say the evidence is stacked against Watson. Clear video, documented injuries, his own online provocations, and a disastrous deposition have left little room for a defense. Some note that any asset shuffling strategies, like selling expensive property, are unlikely to hold up against specialists who enforce large civil judgments. 2 cases now threaten different pillars of his life. The criminal trial could send him back to prison for up to 25 years. The civil suit could devastate his finances, with uncapped damages hitting a business already strained by falling revenue, lost subscribers, and reputational damage from the footage. Together, they mark his most serious legal crisis since 2009, with video evidence, aggressive opposing counsel, approved punitive damages, and his own testimony all working against him. The unraveling. The Wes Watson of 2024, imposing and relentlessly disciplined, projecting an image of total control over his body and his circumstances, has given way to a figure that even his most loyal followers have struggled to reconcile with the brand they once admired. The most immediately visible transformation has been physical. Watson has shed an estimated 30 to 40 pounds of muscle in a strikingly short period, transitioning from the hulking, tattooed physique that served as the visual anchor of his entire fitness brand to a noticeably diminished frame. For a man who sold fitness coaching, whose physical presence was the first and most persuasive argument for his product, the change has been devastating to his professional credibility. Watson himself has addressed the weight loss in his content, attributing it to the volume of hatred directed at him online. But the irony has not been lost on his critics. A man who built an empire selling mental toughness and unbreakable discipline now appeared to be visibly crumbling under pressure. The behavioral shifts have been equally dramatic. Watson's content, once characterized by a controlled intensity, loud and aggressive but purposeful in its messaging, has deteriorated into erratic outbursts and emotional volatility that feels undirected and unhinged. In September 2025, Watson released a rant mocking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as gay and dismissing UFC fighters as weak, a provocation that detonated a firestorm of condemnation.
Powerful Stuff You Should Know, Part 309. This is how brands track their competitors online. It's called SimilarWeb.
UFC fighters as weak, a provocation that detonated a firestorm of condemnation from the MMA community, drew responses from prominent figures, and sparked broader conversations about toxic masculinity in the fitness space. The timing was particularly self-destructive. Watson was months away from criminal trial, already facing public backlash over the gym assault, and actively losing the audience he depended on for income, insulting one of the largest and most passionate communities in combat sports, a community that overlaps significantly with his own target demographic. Was not a strategic miscalculation. It was an act of sabotage carried out by a man who appeared to be losing the ability to distinguish between content that builds an audience and content that destroys one. The rant was not an isolated incident of poor judgment. In March 2025, Watson nearly attacked journalists in Miami, confronting media members who had been covering his legal situation. The encounter did not result in charges, but it underscored a troubling pattern. Watson's aggressive impulses were not being contained by the reality of his legal situation. A man out on bond, awaiting trial on felony battery charges for a documented assault, was still behaving in ways that invited additional scrutiny and additional risk. For his defense attorneys, every such incident represents another data point that prosecutors can use to establish a pattern of behavior. Evidence that the December 29th assault was not an aberration, but a reflection of Watson's baseline. Disposition. The financial indicators have followed a similarly troubling trajectory. In mid-2025, reports surfaced that Watson had been secretly attempting to sell his prized Bugatti Chiron Persport through a Miami dealership, with the vehicle's VIN exposed online by investigators and content creators who had been tracking Watson's financial situation. The Bugatti was not just a car in Watson's world, it was the single most visible symbol of his success, the physical proof that the Prison to Millions narrative was real. He had featured it in content. He had used it as evidence that his methods worked, and now he was quietly trying to offload it through a third-party dealership, hoping no one would notice. Reports indicated that the car carried monthly payments of approximately $65,000, an obligation Watson could allegedly no longer sustain. His YouTube channel, once a reliable revenue engine generating millions of views, has experienced stagnating growth and declining engagement as his content has shifted away from the prison narratives that originally captivated audiences toward broader motivational content that resonates with fewer people. Subscriber numbers have dropped to around 517,000, with reports that Watson's aggressive comment moderation, scrubbing critical comments and reporting detractors to the platform, has ironically suppressed the engagement metrics that algorithms reward, accelerating the very decline he was trying to prevent. The scamming allegations that first surfaced in 2020, combined with the gym incident and its aftermath, have eroded the audience trust that any coaching-based business fundamentally depends upon. Watson has said he does not miss prison, but the prison, in many measurable ways, has never fully released its grip on him. The Reckoning. As of February 11, 2026, nothing has been resolved. The civil trial is scheduled for February 26, 2026. The criminal trial is tentatively set for March 2026. Watson's remains out on bond. He maintains his innocence, he maintains his self-defense claim, and the evidence continues to accumulate against him. The civil trial will arrive first, and its implications extend far